good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from a news about Desawe Kanda, also live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in and beyond. Coming out this evening, NDC cements its dominance in Ghana's 9th Parliament with 184 seats. As Speaker Alban Sumana Kismo Bagben swears in their Blakema North Member of Parliament, Irama Oben, amid minority walkout. Stay with us. We've got details for you on this particular development in Parliament and what this means on their work and the balance of power in this 9th Parliament here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, shipping containers suspected to be filled with synthetic opioids is missing at the Tema ports as one suspected person, we understand, has been detained as we speak. Stay with us. We've got details for you on Hot Edition. Also, the Attorney General discontinues prosecution of former Finance Minister Dr. Kwabena Dufour and 7 others who were standing trial in connection with the alleged financial improprieties during Ghana's financial sector cleanup. All these plus the latest in business and sports for the next 1 hour here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesme 107.1 and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. I am Alfred Consular, settled for a summary of the news now. Christabel Success Travers here.
In tonight's summary, the Attorney General's office has formally discontinued the prosecution of former Finance Minister Dr. Kwabena Dufour and 7 others who were standing trial in connection with alleged financial improprieties during Ghana's financial sector cleanup. In a press release issued today, Tuesday, July 22, the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Sermsai, announced that a nolle prosequi had been entered in the case titled The Republic vs. Kwabena Dufour and 7 others. Though the law does not require the Attorney General to explain the basis for such a decision, the statement noted that the move was made in the interest of transparency and public accountability. Also, the Minister for Education, Haruna Idrisu, has directed Get Fund to compile an inventory of all uncompleted educational projects across the country. He made this known during the swearing-in ceremony of the Accra Technical University Council on Tuesday, July 22. According to the minister, the inventory will enable the ministry to develop a clear plan to facilitate the timely completion of these stalled projects as part of efforts to improve the quality of education across the country. Irabena Oben of the National Democratic Congress, NDC, has officially been sworn in as a Member of Parliament for Blakema North, despite a walkout by the minority side in Parliament. The swearing-in presided over by the Speaker of Parliament, Right Honourable Alban Kinsford Bagben, followed a brief procedural standoff that saw minority MPs exit the chamber in protests. And finally, 2 people have drowned in the Black Volta River following yet another avoidable canoe accident in the Wa West districts of the Upper West region. The victims were part of a group of 6 returning from a funeral in neighboring Burkina Faso on Sunday, July 20, when their canoe capsided midstream near Bangpama. While 4 of the passengers managed to swim to safety, 2 others were swept away by the strong currents. Only 1 body had been recovered as of now. Over to you, Alfred.
There's more of this on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're live on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale and also on W93.5 in and beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments and opinions are welcome at 3FM 927 radar to you and to the rest of the world. We're crossing over now to the UPSA auditorium where the 13th John Evans Atamale's anniversary lecture is ongoing, and the former Electoral Commission chairperson, who is the keynote speaker for this event, Charlotte Osei, is addressing the gathering as we speak. We'll take a brief of that and we'll come back shortly to give you some more on Hot Edition.
Just in the castle, you knew that if Prof offered you a drink and you said you wanted a drink, Prof would go open the fridge himself and come and serve you. And then you'll be holding the can of Coke and wondering whether you should drink it or you should just take it home with you. But that was Prof. Even after Prof's death in 2012, his influence on my life and work has continued. The lessons he taught me, the values he instilled in me, and the vision he shared with me continue to guide my decisions and actions. Before I end this lecture, I would like to recount my last meeting with Prof. This was a couple of months before he passed on. With the help of Colonel Atachi and Colonel Lawson, I had managed to sneak past Mr. Martin Newman and Mr. Bebaku Mensah, the two tigers at the door. So I used to deal through Colonel Atachi and Colonel Lawson and get in there and make my request, and then Prof would call Mr. Newman and he would wonder, how did you get in here? So anyway, I'd gone to see Prof to fight for some additional resources for the NCC election year activities. I met Prof in a very sad mood. He was not happy. He talked to me about very vicious media attacks, some from people who knew him better. And I said, oh, Prof, but you shouldn't be listening to the media or reading this stuff. And you need to detach completely. I then added that they would only appreciate you when you're gone. I meant after his tenure. I had no way of knowing that would be my last physical meeting with Prof. After Prof's death, I was put on the funeral committee, and I was part of those working on publications, compiling all his tributes from the many diverse sources into the tribute book and editing them. What struck me was the most beautiful tributes Prof received, submitted by some of the very same people we had discussed attacking him in the media shortly before he died. And I learned a huge lesson. To serve well in public service, you must do right by God, by conscience, and by the law. You must be ready to suffer the attacks of people from the lenses of current affairs. But you must be certain in the knowledge that history will always vindicate the just. I held these lessons closely in my time. As I conclude these reflections on Professor John Evans Atta Mills, the man, the teacher, and the president, I am struck by the timeless relevance of his example. In a world that often seems to reward cynicism over idealism, self-interest over service, and division over unity, Professor Mills's life stands as a beacon of what is possible when leadership is rooted in character, guided by principle, and dedicated to the common good. One of the most remarkable aspects of Prof's life was its integration. Prof was not three different people, the man, the teacher, and the president, but one person whose character, values, and principles remained consistent across all roles and contexts. The humility that characterized him as a man informed his approach as a teacher and shaped his style as president. This integration is perhaps Prof's most important lesson for all of us, but especially for young people who are still forming their identities and choosing their paths. Prof showed us that it is possible to be authentic and consistent, to maintain one's principles while adapting to different roles and responsibilities. As we honor Prof's memory, we must also commit ourselves to continuing his work. This is not just the responsibility of those who knew him personally, but of all Ghanaians and all Africans who share his vision of a better future. For young people, it is important to pursue excellence in your education and your work, to seek out mentors and to be willing to learn, to take advantage of opportunities to serve others, and commit yourself to building the kind of society that Professor Mills envisioned. For leaders at all levels, it is important that we invest in young people, that we create opportunities for their development and advancement, that we lead with integrity and humility, and to remember that leadership is ultimately about service, not privilege. For all of us, we need to embody the values that Professor Mills exemplified: honesty in our dealings, compassion in our relationships, excellence in our work, and service in our communities. Professor Mills once said that my doors are always open. We'll make sure to provide the resources and make the necessary contacts. As a government, we will give you the fullest support. These words capture the essence of his approach to leadership and mentorship throughout his life. Even in death, Prof's doors remain open. His example continues to teach us, his vision continues to inspire us, and his legacy continues to challenge us to be better than we are. He remains our eternal teacher, showing us through his life what is possible when character meets opportunity, when principles guide power, and when service defines success. Prof understood that the ultimate measure of
the live coverage of the 13th John Evans Atta Mills Anniversary Commemorative Lecture, which has been addressed by the keynote speaker for this year, Madam Charlotte Osei, a former chairperson of the Electoral Commission. She is a member of the Constitutional Review Committee set up by the President, John Dramani Mahama, to engage stakeholders and Ghanaians on the proposals to review or amend portions of the Constitution. We've got details of these and more on 3news.com. Let's come back to some more issues here on Hot Tradition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. There's a lot that's been happening in Parliament and at the courts as well. But let's start off the journey in Parliament. Finally, Ablekuma North is represented in this 9th Parliament. Chrisabel?
Yes, because Ghana's political landscape witnessed a pivotal moment today as the National Democratic Congress, NDC, officially secured a 2/3 majority in Parliament following the swearing in of Ablekuma North MP-elect Irabina Orbin. The development marks a significant consolidation of power for the governing party, fundamentally altering the balance of legislative authority in Ghana's 276-seat parliament. The road to this supermajority began with the contentious December 2024 general elections, where the Ablekuma North constituency results remained disputed due to allegations of electoral irregularities and procedural breaches during collation. After months of legal challenges and a High Court ruling ordering the completion of results collation, the Electoral Commission conducted a rerun in 19 polling stations on July 11, 2025. Orbin, representing the NDC, emerged victorious with 34,090 votes against the MPP's Ikuya Efriye 33,881 votes, which is a narrow margin of just 209 votes. With Orbin swearing in, the NDC now holds 184, exactly 2/3 of Parliament, alongside 4 independent MPs who have declared support for the party, while the opposition New Patriotic Party trails with 87 seats. On one other seat, which the opposition previously held, is now vacant following the demise of the MP for Akwitia, Ernest Yaokumi. The date for a by-election is yet to be determined. Here are excerpts of the swearing in during which the minority staged a walkout.
I, Obin Arabina, having been elected a member of Parliament, do in the name of the Almighty God swear. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Republic of Ghana.
As by law established.
That I will uphold.
Preserve.
Protect.
And defend the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. And that I will faithfully. And conscientiously. Discharge the duties of a member of Parliament. So help me God.
Well, that was Irabina Orbin being sworn in Parliament earlier today. Speaker of Parliament, after administering the oath of office, admonished the NDC not to abuse their supermajority status.
Honorable members, we have the lessons of the past, and I'm sure you all recall that the first parliament of the Fourth Republic had more than 2/3 majority in their house, coming from the same National Democratic Congress. In the second parliament, we had almost the same 2/3. The NPP then had 61 members. The other parties, that PNC, CVP together, had 6 with an independent member. And that took the parties not in government to a total of 67. And NDC had 133. That was about 2/3. In 1994, the then President Jerry John Rawlings, called us to a meeting and told us, like what the majority leader just referred to, that we should not use the overwhelming majority to try to bully or stifle the minority from having their say on the floor of Parliament. You, when you are given this mandate, must act as the father and mother of the nation. So you must have the patience, you must have the tolerance to listen to the other side. I hope and pray that this exhortation from both presidents, His Excellency Jerry John Rawlings and His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, will be taken by you. We must allow our colleagues in the minority to have their say.
Well, that's the Speaker, Right Honourable Alban Sumana Kingsford Bagman there. Let's stay a bit further on this matter. Dr. Rashid Rahman is the Director of the Africa Centre for Parliamentary Affairs. Dr. Rahman, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening, Alfred.
And in the words of the Majority Leader, Mama Yariga, the NDC, indeed, for the first time in a very long time, has to touch again in Parliament. And you heard the Speaker of Parliament just do a chronicle of those 2 parliaments that the NDC previously had the majority, that's the 2/3 in that parliament. Now, the fundamental question that the Speaker poses is whether or not this is going to inure to the benefit of democracy, looking at the balance of power. Now, that's what the late Jerry John Rawlings said in that admonition that the Speaker just recalled, that the majority should not use that 2/3 majority now to bully their other colleagues, relevant now, looking at the scheme of things.
Yes, indeed, Alfred. I mean, this is very, very relevant. I mean, across the world, in democracies where there are super majorities, if those majorities go unchecked, I mean, they become a danger to democracy itself. If those majorities go unchecked, we see a number of things that becomes risks to a country's democratic process. Constitutional overreach. We see lack of scrutiny and rubber stamping of parliamentary processes. We see a shrinking of the space for conversation. We see a minority that is not given the space to do its work. So while this is victory for the NDC, and they are, I think, celebrating that victory, it could be a sword that can cut both ways. And I think Ghanaians are hoping that whenever the sword is going to cut, it cuts in the way of improving our democracy, in the way of making sure that, the minority is not squeezed, in the way of making sure that, the numbers are used for the benefit of, this country. There are a number of, for instance, constitutional provisions that are candidate for review, that with these numbers, I think the NDC could easily do that if they are not entrenched clauses. Ghanaians will be looking up to the NDC to use those numbers for things like that, rather than pursuing a partisan parochial interest. When the honorable member was being sworn in, I think the first few words were that she was going to uphold, work in the interest of Ghana and uphold the Constitution. That is what all our members of Parliament are supposed to do. But often, you see them paying allegiance to some powerful president, some powerful party, and so on, and they forget the allegiance that they swore to this country and to the Constitution. So I'm just hoping that these numbers will be used as a force for good, so that our democracy would improve, rather than using it for pursuing parochial partisan interests.
But really, if you look at the reality, Dr. Draman, since the inception of this 9th Parliament, the NDC MPs, or the majority side of this 9th Parliament, which has the historic 2/3 now, has never had the full complement of their MPs on the floor of Parliament. In fact, yesterday, they struggled to pass this Mahama Cares bill, which is now, from what we are getting now, has been passed into law as we speak. That is today, the Ghana Medical Trust Fund bill. Yesterday, the majority side did not have enough numbers. In fact, the minority at some point had more numbers than them, even with this 184. So some would say that the fears may just be far-fetched based on the reality we're seeing now.
The fears are not far-fetched, Alfred. I think when it matters most, they will rally their members to come and vote, and they just need 138 to make decisions. So I think if there are critical bills before Parliament, they can marshal those numbers. So yes, quorum has always been a problem. We have seen that right from, I think, the early days of this Parliament. And some of us have had the occasion of saying that the minority looks more organized and more cohesive than the majority, despite their numbers. And that is, I think that is what the visuals are telling us. But when it matters most, they will rally their troops and they can get a lot of things done. And when they do that, I think all we are saying is, they should do that in the interest of this country. I wrote a blog. If you go on our website, you would see what this shift means for our democracy, and particularly for journalists and for journalism. I was addressing the Parliamentary Press Corps just a few days ago, and I was saying that, they are the last bastion. That is you people. Because the minority can always just have a say, but the heads will be counted. And, when the heads are counted, the NDC is always going to have the day. But I think we need journalists to do their watchdog work in concert with civil society, as we saw just 2 days ago with the withdrawal of that bill. The scholarship bill that was before Parliament. So, yes, they would not have the numbers, routinely, but when it matters most, Alfred, just trust me, they can pull everybody into the house, and if they want to do mischief, they can use those numbers for mischief, and I hope they don't.
And we'll see how the coming days will look like on this. I thank you so much, Dr. Ashidawan. Thank you for joining us. Let's stay a bit further on this, and that is from the parliamentary analysis and then the balance of power perspective in terms of how things are going to play out on the floor of Parliament. Dr. Ashidawan, Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. But how about the politics of things as well? Because what happens in Parliament is a direct reflection of the executive's decision and the direction that the executive arm of government intends to take in terms of governance and steering the affairs of this country. And this is why I bring in Dr. Jonathan Asantewotri. He's a political analyst and a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Political Science Department. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, on the back of what Dr. Rashid Draman just indicated, and that's why I want to pick up, because even though the NDC has 2/3, as we are seeing now with the swearing in of Rabbi Nawabin as the 184th member of the majority side in this parliament, since the inception of this 9th parliament, we haven't seen them really flex their numbers in terms of the representation on the floor of parliament. So yes, they have the muscle, but they haven't really worked with it. How does it strike you?
Well, it's quite interesting. I don't want to believe, good evening to your listeners and to your good self. And a little point of correction, not the political science department, it's rather the classes and philosophy department. Now, a point ought to be made that there is that temptation when you have such an overwhelming number in parliament to think that, oh, if I'm not there, this person will be there. If this one is not the most, then we'll have the majority to always, ensure that we get things through. Be that as it may, I foresee the NDC majority, or to tell the majority in Parliament, rather using their numbers to the advantage of the ordinary Ghanaian. And I am of the view that if they need numbers to push down certain bills, it will be bills that are of a positive consequential effect on Ghanaians, popular ones. Like, for example, it is just quite unfortunate that the Mahama Care, when they were discussing or wanted to push it through, they did not have numbers. So I'm getting a bit confused as to what exactly is happening. I don't also want to believe that some individual members of parliament are disgruntled or apathetic towards the executive arm of government, for which reason, they may want to embarrass the executive arm of government, i.e. the president and his team. Besides, they are all part of the same team. And so I think that it is early days yet. If you look at the position of the president, I do not see in him someone who will want to, push down the throat of everyone on popular bills. That being said, the NDC in not too long distant future will be in transition. Now, they will have to manage the transition very well. Other than that, they could be faced with some kind of internal bickering, and that may not augur well for them when Mr. Mahama is about to hand over to the new leader. So I am of the view that strategically, since or most likely Dr. Baumann may emerge, then it means that you may not want to ruffle a lot of feathers along your path to create some kind of discomfort for kingmakers, and that kingmakers being Ghanaian. So I think that they'll be very cautious, and they will want to ensure that the transition is smoothly done. And that is the more reason why they may want to take decisions that are popular with Ghanaians, that are of some benefit to Ghanaians, and not a kind of bills that will not inure to the benefit of the majority of Ghanaians, but some kind of executive benefit somewhere. And I don't see that is exactly what is likely to happen. And that's the more reason why it baffles me that the Mahama Care, the patronage of the majority parliament.
And I do thank you. Maybe just a brief one before we go. Is there any indication of as it were, what Dr. Rashid Draman has said, when it matters most, galvanizing the numbers and pushing certain things through? Have you seen any indication of that kind of posturing from this majority of this 9th parliament?
That when it matters?
Yes, that if there are matters that, for instance, he talks about the possible state of or of abuse of that two-thirds majority, so that if it is something that really they need to push through regardless of what the minority says, then they would galvanize the numbers and push it through, and then we'll go back to that same mantra of the minority having their say, but the minority always having their way. Do you see that posture from the majority in this 9th Parliament?
Well, I doubt a little. If you follow the analysis, the trail of my analysis, or the trajectory of my analysis, you believe that I am thinking a bit differently. Whichever way you look at it, the majority will always have their way. But I think this is a kind of majority that are very cautious, because they know where they came from and they would just easily let it go. So they really want to do right by Ghanaians. Now, if you want to push through something, I think that they will only push through something that is more popular with Ghanaians. Because, for example, that's medical, whatever, I've forgotten the name of the bill, but they call it Mahama Care. It's supposed to be something that is going to be beneficial to the old, the aged, and virtually look at the kind of ailments that they are talking about. But these are diseases that, you may have to live with it till probably you die. And so such a popular thing, I expect that there shouldn't be any controversy about it. But even when it gets to a bill that is controversial, definitely they will marshal the people and they'll go ahead and approve it. But that being said, whether they will go back to that, lackluster kind of presence in Parliament, well, it may be too speculative, to hazard a guess. I hope that as this subject matter has come up in the media, they may have to turn a new leaf and ensure that the majority of Ghanaians are giving them, they use it to the benefit of the majority of us.
And I do appreciate your thoughts on this. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Jonathan Asantiochi is a senior lecturer at the University of Cape Coast, joining us there. So live here on Hot Edition. Let's go on to some more stories. As there's something happening at the Attorney General's office, there's a statement which has been issued not too long ago regarding Dr. Kwabena Duffuor and 7 others who were standing trial in connection with the alleged financial improprieties during Ghana's financial sector cleanup. What do we know?
Yes, I'm going to read the full statement right now, and it says, Nolle Prosequi, the Republic versus Kwabena Duffuor and 7 others, CR 0248-2020. The Honorable Attorney General has today entered a Nolle Prosequi in the case of the Republic versus Kwabena Duffuor and 7 others. While the exercise of this prosecutorial discretion requires no explanation under law, the Attorney General, in the spirit of accountability and transparency, considers it appropriate to provide the public with the rationale behind this decision, and is enumerated as follows. 1. As may be recalled, the Republic versus Kwabena Duffuor and 7 others case formed part of a broader set of prosecutions arising out of the financial sector cleanup exercise, which the state has been undertaking since the year 2018. Now, secondly, the central objective of these prosecutions has been to A, ensure accountability for public funds, and more importantly, B, recover losses occasioned to the state through various alleged acts of financial impropriety. 3, in pursuit of this objective, the Office of the Attorney General, in collaboration with other relevant state agencies, established a threshold of 60% recovery of the alleged losses to the state as a condition for reconsidering prosecution in specific cases. 4, following prolonged negotiations and engagement, the accused persons in the Republic versus Kwabena Duffuor and 7 others case have met this recovery threshold. Accordingly, in furtherance of public interest and considering the significant recoveries made for the state, the Honorable Attorney General has satisfied himself that continuing with the prosecution will not serve any additional public purpose. 5, this decision, however, does not imply an absence of wrongdoing nor a vindication of any conduct. It is a pragmatic step in line with the overarching national interest of recovering state resources. And finally, the Honorable Attorney General remains resolute in his commitment to upholding the rule of law, protecting the public purse and pursuing justice in all matters of national importance. And this was signed by the Deputy Attorney General, Honorable Dr. Justice Srem Sai. If you go on our Facebook page, we have it all displayed for you to see, Alfred.
It's a very, very interesting development that has also attracted some conversation. We're going to go over this statement again because we're going to get Adam Sena, who's the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption, as well to speak on this matter, and also Martin Pebo as well, who is a private legal practitioner. We have a conversation on this here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. And as you indicated, for those who are watching us on Facebook right now at 3FM 927 and also on YouTube, we're posting the full complement of this statement signed by the Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Srem Sai, on the decision by the Attorney General's office to formally discontinue the prosecution of the former Finance Minister, Dr. Kwabena Dufour. And let's get a bit more into it.
Yes. So the Honorable Attorney General has today entered a nolle prosequi in the case of the Republic versus Kwabena Dufour and 7 others. While the exercise of this prosecutorial discretion requires no explanation under law, the Attorney General, in the spirit of accountability and transparency, considers it appropriate to provide the public with the rationale behind this decision. And it's as follows. 1. As may be recalled, the Republic versus Kwabena Dufour and 7 other cases formed part of a broader set of prosecutions arising out of the financial sector clean-up exercise, which the state has been undertaking since the year 2018. 2. The central objective of these prosecutions has been to A. ensure accountability for public funds and, more importantly, B. recover losses occasioned to the state through various alleged acts of financial impropriety. 3. In pursuit of this objective, the Office of the Attorney General, in collaboration with other relevant state agencies, established a threshold of 60% recovery of the alleged losses to the state as a condition for reconsidering prosecution in specific cases. 4. Following prolonged negotiations and engagements, the accused person in the Republic versus Kwabena Dufour and 7 others case have met this recovery threshold. Accordingly, in furtherance of public interest and considering the significant recoveries made for the states, the Honorable Attorney General has satisfied himself that continuing with the prosecution will not serve any additional public purpose. 5. This decision, however, does not imply an absence of wrongdoing nor a vindication of any conduct. It is a pragmatic step in line with the overarching national interests of recovering state resources. And finally, the Honorable Attorney General remains resolute in his commitment to upholding the rule of law, protecting the public purse, and pursuing justice in all matters of national importance. And again, it was signed by the Deputy Attorney General, Honorable Dr. Justice Srem Sai.
Let's step a bit further on this. Adam Sena is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Sena, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
And now, if you look at the point 4 of the statement, which was issued by the Attorney General, which I know you've gotten some detail, they make the point that following prolonged negotiations and engagement, these accused persons in the Republic versus Kwabena Dufour and the 7 others case, they have met the recovery threshold, and accordingly, and in furtherance of the public interest, and they're considering the significant recoveries made for the state, the Attorney General has satisfied himself that continuing with the prosecution would not serve any additional public purpose. It is on the premise of this that this decision has been taken. And he says that it does not imply an absence of wrongdoing nor a vindication of the conduct. How does this development strike you?
Well, we clearly need more details. I'm not quite sure how the 60% threshold was set. Which stakeholders engaged over that? How that relates to international best practice relating to recoveries is not clear. How the remaining 40%, leaving it will serve the public interest, is not clear. Is this a plea bargain? Are there other cases that are similar where persons have been paying, they've reached the 60% threshold? How many more such cases, and who are the individuals involved? It appears we are setting a precedent that others could take advantage of in the future. And so it's not a very comfortable, decision. Yes, we appreciate the transparency, but it raises many more questions in terms of how we run this and manage it for the future.
And those questions, as you have just asked, you demand that at least the Attorney General would come give further and better particulars?
Yes, the AG needs to. 60% as a minimum threshold, why are we satisfied with that in this instance? Isn't there indication that we could get 70? Why not 80%? How was that threshold fixed? And why are we speaking to this particular case? Are there other cases? Why is there no mention of any other similar cases? There's a sense in which if it was a neutral group that had arrived at this minimum threshold, and we're not dealing with an individual who has a historical relationship with the government of the day, perhaps it would have been taken as a decision without necessarily any influence. But at this point, without further better particulars, it's not clear why we should be satisfied with 60%. And whether it's a plea bargain, are there other such cases? It's not clear.
Manzano, I do appreciate your thoughts on this, and I thank you very much. I know that we're going to be having a bit more conversation on this in the coming days as you keep asking these questions, begging for answers. Thank you, sir.
And thank you, too.
Adam Sano is the co-chair of the Citizens Movement Against Corruption. Let's get into matters of narcotics, because there's a development at the port.
Yes, a shipping container suspected to be filled with synthetic opioids has gone missing at the Tema port. One person has been arrested, with two others said to be on the run, as Narcotics Control Commission officials are seeking to unravel this disturbing story. The Narcotics Control Commission, NACOC, has in the last few months embarked on surveillance at the ports following a BBC documentary highlighting the influx of synthetic opioids, with Ghana described as a hotspot destination. This close monitoring led NACOC officials to focus on a container said to have emanated from India on 26th March 2025. They therefore flagged the container and tagged it for further investigation. The container was then dispatched for scanning on 23rd May 2025, but has since not been sighted at the Tema ports. A new probe led to the arrest of the said suspect, who is alleged to have submitted the declaration in the e-customs system on behalf of Sabadat S&D Enterprise. Investigators say he admitted to acting as the declarant for the company and confirmed that he entered the consignments into the e-customs system. He also informed investigators that the bill of lading and invoice were handed to him by the two suspects said to be at large. He has been slapped with the charge of importation of drugs and other products contrary to Section 122 of the Public Health Act 2012, Act 851. Alfred.
It's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions are welcome. Read out to you and to the rest of the world. And so a number of your messages coming in, which we'll get onto on our Facebook page shortly and read them to you and to the rest of the world here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesme 107.1 in Tamale, and also on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. We're going to go for the business news. Bismarck Osa is standing by as we're getting to know that the Bank of Ghana has also now continuously giving indication of what it intends to do to ensure that the traders' concerns of not having access to the dollar is addressed. And they've announced a new set of guidelines on the application of exchange rates by players in the shipping industry, effective today, July 22. Stay with us. Bismarck Osa has the details after this quick break.
Your journey never stops. A new adventure awaits you, just a few clicks away. A road trip or vacation, a time to connect with those we care about. We take on the hassle so you don't have to. We are here to give you the freedom to go places.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Coming up tonight, Bank of Ghana issues new guidelines to standardize exchange rate application in shipping industry effective today, July 2022. These and many other stories lined up for you. Please stay. I am Bismarck Ausa. Let's settle now for the details. The Bank of Ghana has issued fresh directives to regulate how shipping companies operating in Ghana apply exchange rates in billing for services. The move, which follows stakeholder consultations, is aimed at ensuring greater transparency and protecting importers and other port users from arbitrary pricing practices. The following 3 Business News Desk report has details. The Bank of Ghana is tightening oversight in the shipping sector with a new set of guidelines to govern how exchange rates are applied in invoicing for services rendered at the ports. Under the new rules, which take effect from July 22, all players in the shipping industry are required to publish their daily exchange rates either online or at their premises and ensure they are clearly communicated to customers before issuing invoices or accepting payments. Invoices must now explicitly state the currency used, the applied exchange rate, the date of application, and the final amount in either the cedi or the dollars. The central bank insists that exchange rates must reflect market conditions and be benchmarked against its published interbank rate, not arbitrarily determined. Customers dissatisfied with how rates are applied can first lodge complaints with the service provider and, if unresolved, escalate the matter to the Ghana Shippers Authority. The directive, which is in line with the Foreign Exchange Act of 2006, is expected to curb abuse and foster pricing transparency at Ghana's ports. Industry players who fail to comply risk facing administrative sanctions. And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Moving on, economist and director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, Professor Peter Kote, is advocating for a marginal reduction in the Bank of Ghana's policy rates, currently pegged at 28%. His call comes on the back of a sustained decline in headline inflation, which dropped for the 6th consecutive month to 13.7% in June 2025, down from 23.8% in December last year. Professor Kote argues that the disinflation trend and the re-anchoring of inflation expectations presents room for moderate monetary easing to support private sector credit growth. The Central Bank's Monetary Policy Committee is expected to announce its next rate decision on Wednesday, July 30, after its regular 3-day meeting starting Monday, July 28.
Well, I think a marginal reduction, a gradual reduction, in my view, is acceptable in the sense that if you look at the inflation rate and you look at the policy rate, the gap is just too wide, and we need to drive down interest rate. Interest rates are so high for any business to be profitable. I think the indicators are good. So when they are good, certainly maybe a 1% or 2 percentage point, in other words, 100 to 200 basis points reduction will be good for now. That has ripple effects. When you reduce the policy rate, it's likely to lead to a reduction in the levy rate. Then businesses can borrow and be more active, productive, and by so doing, be able to generate more resources, grow our economy. So I would say that given the high cost of doing business, already utility tariffs, etc., have gone up, and if the policy rate is pointing towards, the inflation rate and other indicators are stable, a marginal reduction in the policy rate is justified.
And that was economist and director of the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, Professor Peter Korte, advocating for a marginal reduction in the Bank of Ghana's policy rate, currently pegged at 28%. The Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana is criticizing the government for failing to engage stakeholders in the shipping industry ahead of the mid-year budget review. Executive Secretary Samson Asaki Awingobit expressed frustration that despite Finance Minister Dr. Kasiel Atufor's promise to meet with stakeholders on key tax reforms, the association has been left out of discussions. The association is urging the government to engage them before implementing any tax reforms and has vowed to resist any reforms that do not favor importers and exporters.
In the first meeting budget, none of them was set. None of them was abolished. None of them was reduced. None of them was aligned. There was no rationalization. What the minister said to the whole world was that after that budget, they were going to meet the business community and do tax reforms and rationalize it. As we speak, that engagement came sometime June or July thereabouts. Importers and exporters being the pivotal stakeholder concerning the plight and the challenges faced the business community, especially the importers and exporters in this country, were not invited to any of these tax forms, tax engagement. As to speak, Thursday coming Thursday, 2 days difference, the Minister of Finance will be in Parliament of Ghana to present his mid-year budget review. And I'm sure he's going to make mention that he has met stakeholders on tax reform. I can tell with authority that the Importers and Exporters Association wasn't part and did not take part and does not know what is entailed in it. And so anything that will come below our expectation will make us with fury to vigorously resist it.
Executive Secretary of the Importers and Exporters Association of Ghana, Samson Asaki Awingobit, expressing his displeasure over government's failure to engage the association on the mid-year budget review. And that brings us to the end of business on Hot Edition with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Reku Ampofo is here for sports. Please stay.
Hello, good evening and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on TFM 92.7. We start off from Morocco where there's action tonight and currently ongoing with regards to the Women's Africa Cup of Nations. And just by way of update, Nigeria's women's team have just taken the lead against South Africa. What looks like could potentially be the late winner, as Michelle Aloti has scored in the 94th minute to put the Super Falcons 2-1 against Banyana. Just a couple more minutes left to play in that one as well. It was Nigeria who raced into the lead in the first half through a penalty by Rashidat Ajibade. However, South Africa responded just 15 minutes after the halftime break, after Motlatu converted her penalty. But it's Nigeria who look like they are well on their way to the final with just a few seconds left to play in that semi-final. However, Ghanaians will be more concerned about the match that kicks off in just about an hour's time because the Black Queens will be facing the host nation, Morocco, and my colleague Akosia J is currently in Rabat station for the game and reports on what to expect.
It all comes down to tonight when the Black Queens of Ghana take on the Atlas Lionesses of Morocco at the Olympic Stadium, a stadium that has become a fortress for the Moroccan national team. For the Black Queens of Ghana, they have seen it all. They have been through it all. Through a defeat to South Africa, a drawn game against Mali, a victory against Tanzania, and of course going all the way into penalties to win against Algeria. Today, they will be tested again if indeed they want to be the winners of the newly unveiled trophy as well as the $1 million prize. So the Black Queens of Ghana are getting ready to make history at Rabat. But as they prepare to make that history, maybe, just maybe, their motivation will skyrocket after they see the presence of the Minister for Sports and Recreation, Kofi Adams, who has landed in Rabat, the capital of Morocco, to push his weight behind the senior national.
And so it looks as if expectation is really high, and the Black Queens will be surrounded by some dignitaries in Rabat when they do face Morocco in just about an hour's time. There'll be live commentary on TFM 92.7. However, still on the Black Queens, we stepped out to the streets of Accra just to find out how confident Ghanaians are ahead of this crunch fixture.
You know, they've gotten where the men haven't gotten to. So we are really praying that, they win against Morocco. I mean, we love Morocco too. We are all one continent, but Black Queens should shine for Ghana.
Oh, I wish they should play well, and I wish them very good luck. I hope they get to the finals, and I hope they beat Morocco.
We will support them, and we will pray for them so that we will win, so that we will collect the cup, so that Ghana will be happy.
Yes, I think they can win by 2 goals to 1.
Omo ahoɔden ɛwɔ soro. Ntimidie ntina na mahye saa jersey. Nuse na ebedi nkunim ama Ghana.
But I just watched a recent match which was a bit shaky. I think they have to work on their defense a lot because the people they're going to play with are very smarter than them. So I think if they can, I'm sure they can go to the finals.
Actually, today we are all praying for the best for the Black Queens, and we have hope in them that they can do better today, and we are looking for.
So Ghanaian sounding very optimistic ahead of the semi-final match between the Black Queens and then Morocco in that as well. Just by way of update before we also wrap up, the match between Nigeria and South Africa is still 2-1. But has entered the 102nd minute. It was initially 6 minutes added on, but it looks as if that has been extended. You can get updates of that on our social media handles at 3 Sports. My name is Oreko Ampofo.